So yesterday we also presented a spotlight poster discussion on one of our studies that evaluated the impact of race and ethnicity on clinical, socioeconomic, and genomic characteristics, clinical trial participation, and receipt of genotype-matched therapy among patients with metastatic breast cancer. So we know from prior studies that race and ethnicity can unfortunately impact patient outcomes in patients with breast cancer. We have previously published data in clinical cancer research in which we showed that both cell-free DNA and tumor tissue genotyping assays can lead to the identification of actionable mutations and the selection of matched targeted therapy. And in our retrospective cohort that was previously published, we actually demonstrated that there was a survival improvement in patients who were found to have a cell-free DNA actionable mutation and went on to receive a matched targeted therapy, even after correcting for a number of other demographic variables. However, the impact of race and ethnicity on the selection of genotype-matched therapy is not known, so that's something that we sought to evaluate in the current study. So we examined a large cohort of patients at our institution who had undergone cell-free DNA testing in the setting of metastatic disease. And we also collected a number of demographic variables in a retrospective fashion and went on to analyze the impact of race and ethnicity on these variables. So what we actually discerned was that there was a wide spectrum of patients that were identified, and we were able to group these patients as white or black, Hispanic, or Asian based on their race and ethnicity that was self-reported. We found that there were actually similar distributions of disease subtype and standard demographic variables such as age at metastatic disease presentation. However, there was a significant difference in the type of insurance that patients had. White patients were far more significantly likely to have commercial insurance, whereas black patients tended to have more state-supported insurance, and Asian patients actually had the highest uninsured rates, and this was a statistically significant finding. In addition, we analyzed the median distance that patients of various race and ethnicity were able to travel to our institution. And we found that white patients actually on average were able to travel farther to come to our institution than other races, and this was again a significant finding. However, the clinical trial enrollment rates were found to be similar across these groups, which was nice to see. And we did find that the percent of patients that had an actionable mutation found in cell-free DNA was similar across these racial and ethnic groups. However, the receipt of genotype-matched therapy did vary based on race and ethnicity. We found that white patients had the highest rates of genotype-matched therapy, which could include participation on a clinical trial or an FDA-approved drug or an off-label use of an FDA-approved drug. Even when we corrected for the distance from the institution, the disease subtype, and the type of insurance, we found that white patients were still significantly more likely to receive genotype-matched therapy. And that is a finding that I think needs to be followed up on. There are certainly many reasons that could be contributing to this disparity. One possibility is that we actually did observe higher rates of non-English speaking patients in non-white races and ethnic groups, and it is conceivable that perhaps clinical trial consents and trial information were not readily available in these other languages. We also saw that white patients traveled a farther distance on average, and it is possible that there could be a referral bias as well. But this, and I think that we also need to think about the cost of prescription drugs and perhaps whether some groups found it more difficult to handle the co-pays and other costs that are involved with receipt of those drugs. So I think that these are some findings that definitely need to be followed up in a more structured, prospective manner to help us ensure that we're providing equitable care to all patients regardless of their race and ethnicity. Thank you.